What is going on, everybody? How's it going tonight? Thanks again for joining me for another BG-Cast Wednesday live podcast. I'm sure you guys noticed something new when the live show started. That is our disclaimer. We spoke about it last week when we had 2 weeks ago when we had Chris Matthew on the show, and then when we also had Sarah the Alchemist last week. So for the sake of the audio version, I'm going to just lay it out the way it is. So disclaimer: the subject matter and the topics that we are going to be discussing in tonight's show are for entertainment purposes only. All right, guys. So one thing I haven't been able to do enough of lately is I want to welcome all of my new followers. I will be welcoming mostly the people on Rumble, but I want to welcome everybody on YouTube as well. I've still kind of in the shadow ban vault on YouTube, so my attention and focus isn't necessarily there at all times. I do apologize for that, but I do want to welcome some of my new followers here on Rumble, and I want to welcome you guys to the BG-Cast family. Thanks for hanging in there with me. So we got Gigi Goose, we got Tree Mistress, we got K View, we got Charlie B 1234, we got Heather Mattoon. Thanks for joining the fam, guys. We got PW19, we got Cork USMC, we got ASGLOP48, and guys, these are all the most recent ones, and I want to give a shout out to everybody on YouTube too. Thank you so much for checking me out. I know I was on Ryder Lee's show, Raised by Giants, last night. If you heard of me there, thanks for all the love last night. That was a really awesome conversation, and I look forward to not only having Ryder on my show again, but being back on Raised by Giants so we can have these awesome conversations. All right, guys. Well, nonetheless, let's get to our guests tonight. So there's a up and coming political podcast that was brought to my attention by my friend Andrew Lordson. You guys know he's been on this show before, Heavyweight Light Feels. And I checked out some of their episodes, and I got to say, I like where their heart is. I think one of the biggest things about me is I have respect for anybody who takes initiative. And I have respect for anybody who puts their foot forward and tries to do something to elevate this collective even further. So I've got nothing but a world of respect for that, whether we agree on everything or not. I think it's a really cool thing to see when people break out of their shell and kind of come into their own in this kind of fashion. So guys, you guys remember Andrew? He's back here with me again tonight doing this. And then welcome to the stage. We have Kody of the Brothers Blue, and we have Kyle of Brothers Blue. Yep, he's just stepped off for a second. No worries. When he gets back on, I'll bring him on. So, guys, Andrew, thanks for being here. Up here's Kyle. He's back. Andrew, thanks for being here with me tonight. And, Kyle, Kody, very nice to see you guys. Welcome aboard. It's nice to have you on the show.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
We do.
Absolutely, guys. Absolutely. Well, one of the things I talk with my guests about, especially new guests, is I want to hear a little bit about your story. I want to hear a little bit about yourselves. So if you guys don't mind elaborating, what was the inspiration behind Brothers Blue and what kind of made you guys want to get started doing podcasts, that would be awesome. I'd love to hear it.
Kyle, go ahead.
Okay. Personally, I'm glad you asked this question because it was a point I was thinking of, and it is that we do this for fun, basically. If you look at our channel's content, we have videos where we talk about our top 5 favorite breakfast foods. Yeah, exactly. It's just for fun. The political aspect of it is inherent. Kody is fond of saying that politics, you might not care about politics, but politics cares about you. So our content has strayed into the political sometimes. And just like my personal foray into politics, since I was like 18, I was politically active, and George W. Bush was president at the time. And then 2008 was the first election I was able to vote in. And you guys can probably guess who I voted for in that one. But in 2016, when things were going kind of crazy, I was going through some lifestyle changes and I was politically disengaged. And that is the year when a lot of stuff happened. So we just created this channel called Brothers Blue because we wanted to create some political content, but it has, strayed.
Cool. I like it. And how do you feel about that, Kody? Was that kind of the driver for the inspiration for you to get on board also?
So I would feel, this is because I know Kyle's story, and it's very specific about the things that he's talking about, like the years that lined up, like the first one he was able to vote in, and then he wasn't engaged in 2016. 2016 was a very tumultuous time. And for me, I think it was less so of it, like even less like of like there's a point to this. We really are just doing this for fun. And actually, I'm glad that you said it, Kyle, because I have it in my notes. Andrew, you said this, and it's a quote from Seneca. Seneca said, just because you don't care about politics doesn't mean politics doesn't care about you. And so, again, I've taken notes, and it was one of those things that I found that Andrew had said, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is something I can bring up. So
very cool, man. Very cool. I like the story, man. That's how a lot of us start off with this. We do this because we're doing it for fun. We do it, for a passion. And a lot of us kind of hold that, throughout the years. As I'm coming into my third season here soon next year. And it just gets better as you guys go. So Andrew, how do you know Kyle and Kody? I know you've had them on your show before, so why don't you get into a little bit of the brief history with that?
Yeah, thank you for including me, because maybe an element Kyle and Kody didn't mention is that Kody actually is a big inspiration as to why I started making videos. He, if I remember correctly, called me a snowflake that likes the sound of his own voice. And it's funny that like they both kind of mentioned 2016 and what a tumultuous time that was, because when he labeled me that was 2020, which I would say was even crazier than 2016. And it was at a time when, as most of us in the awakening community know, we were watching our friends lose our minds. And so that's why I decided to start making videos, was because I was seeing my friends lose their minds. And it's really, really saddening. And so this potential collaboration here, it's kind of a big deal, because for the last 4 years, the Brothers Blue and I have had some extraordinarily contentious moments. I'll say moments, because it hasn't always been that way. And while I said 2020 was crazy, I think the future is just going to get crazier for a while. And ultimately, we need, in my opinion, more people to wake up. And so I'm hoping that this effort today is not just, to use another philosophical reference, a futile journey into Plato's cave, trying to bring people back with us, but I hope we can actually find success. One last note, something that those of us in like the awakening, the conscious, the truther, whatever the broader community is called, we know what it's like to just like want to shake someone and be like, wake up. But you have to let people get there on their own. And so while it has been a crazy, contentious 4 years, let's hope, some collaboration can be found. So thank you, gentlemen, for, being courageous enough to do this.
Well, absolutely, man. And I understand, because, I've not say I'm completely savvy on everything, but I've seen some things, and, no, I'm with you on that as well, Andrew. I think this is where it begins. We have this conversation. We try to, reach a common ground and an understanding, because I think, with how polarized the world has become at this point in time, it's not good for us. And I mean, it's at a point where the civil discourse and civil dialectic has just gone out the window. and it's now we have a population that is, in a gigantic glass cage of emotion. I'll borrow that from Anchorman, and that's really where a lot of this is really arising from. But nonetheless, let's kind of get down to it, guys. So let's talk about your episode, Echo Chambers. I gotta say that you guys did a great job with this episode. There's something I'd like to talk to you about though, pertaining to this episode though as well. I do agree with you guys. Echo chambers do happen on both sides. It is. It's a matter of, I think right now what has happened is just like I was explaining before, and I'll get your thoughts on this as well. That civil discourse and civil dialectic has gone out the window. And, it seems that a lot of people are I wouldn't say completely okay with it actively. It's more of like a passively okay, because like I was saying, everybody, what has happened, a lot of these instances that we're facing in a lot of these scenarios we're facing, they target the core emotional centers of the human population. So we have a lot of people who are very over emotionally driven with ideologies and viewpoints at this point in time. And it almost seems like a lot of people just want to hear their same thoughts repeated to them. And I can understand what you guys were saying. So what do you feel at this point in time? I know you guys said different media sources, but what's something else we can do? What is a possible solution we can look at to not get ourselves stuck in our own echo chambers?
This right here, what we're doing. And so the conversation that Kyle and I had about echo chambers was literally an echo chamber. If you think about it, because I mean, we were having really contentious things about it. We were just talking about the dangers of echo chambers and how we think that we try to fight against them. And so that's the other thing that I mentioned is I think it is upon Kody, upon Kyle, upon Steven, upon Andrew. It's upon all of us to try to have these conversations to break down our echo chambers, because we're all in that.
Agreed. What do you have to say about that, Kyle?
So I think I mentioned this in the video, but briefly, and I won't get too much into it, but I have coworkers, and okay, so I am a public school teacher in the state of Arizona. Like that is right there. Like that's a contentious thing. So, but every day I go to work and I have conversations with people who disagree with me vastly on all kinds of different political matters. I've talked to Kody specifically about a female coworker of mine, but I also have a male coworker of mine that we talked to, or I was talking to about the Electoral College today. And so I really do think it is important that we engage in actual conversation and not just be on our phones or our computers. Social media consumption and like getting lost in the comments of things, that is, your echo chambers. So I think to stay out of them, try to have as many face-to-face real conversations as you can. Sorry to just reiterate what you were saying.
Oh no, you're absolutely fine, man. Andrew, what would you like to add on this subject?
Yeah, I'm not going to really disagree with anything that was said, but what came to my mind was sort of an inherent problem that Kyle seemingly has, where by nature of his vocation, he is forced to work with people that he disagrees with vehemently, which over time could be a toxic sort of scenario. And I think that speaks to the deeper reality of the overwhelming nature of how much the state is influenced in our lives and how it has forced us into these relationships that we were worried to have more agency would not voluntarily participate in. And so this is where the Brothers Blue and I, and you and I agree. The Brothers Blue will disagree, but this is why anarchism is superior, in my opinion. But I know the Brothers Blue are progressives, as they have called themselves. I would be curious to know what that means in this day and age. If one of them would like to expand on that, and if that's all right with Stephen, if I ask a question.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, man, of course. So guys, do you mind expanding on that? Because the reason why I think that's a great idea is because one thing that's happened, us as a human collective have become kind of disconnected from what a lot of words truly mean.
Yes.
And the definitions of words. So, I mean, there's been a grave disconnection. So, yeah, if you don't mind elaborating what you mean by you guys are more progressives, that would be awesome.
So I think Kyle would do a better job of actually explaining, like, hold on, listen to what I'm saying, Kyle. I think he would do a better job of explaining that. But I have some questions about anarchism because I really don't. Again, I don't have a good grasp, and Andrew and Stephen, I'm sorry, guys, I couldn't do what I think is a great job of explaining what modern day progressivism is.
Mm-hmm.
But like, so back to the anarchy thing, I guess my main question is, and I was thinking about this, isn't like voting antithetical to anarchism?
Oh, absolutely, it is. I mean,
Yeah.
so real fast, I'm gonna bring up. Let me bring up a definition for progressive,
Sure.
progressivism here. Here we go.
And then
So
go ahead.
no, my bad, guys. So what were you gonna say?
Well, I have a question for Andrew, because Andrew, I was recently back home in Washington seeing my mom, and I saw her ballot, right? And it was crazy because there's guys like with full names like Good Space Guy. There's such crazy names on there. But anyways, my question is, in a state where, and I'm pretty sure Washington is mostly mail-in voting, where someone has like the random people that live in Pioneer Square because they're homeless, but they live there. How do they vote? I'm curious. Do you know how?
Andrew, would you like to answer that before I dive into the progressivism definition here?
I really don't understand why I'm being asked a question about that, so I'm not really going to answer it.
Okay.
Oh, just
all right.
the
No.
state that you live in. So.
Well, let's kind of stay on the course, guys. Here, so we got progressivism, right? And this is what I would call the technical bare minimum definition. Now, a lot of us know that there's many different sects of ideology when it comes to progressivism. We have a lot of people who are very, very left leaning towards Marxism kind of ideas and ideologies as well. But this is just what we would call a bare basic definition. So we got progressivism is a left leaning political philosophy and movement that seeks to advance human condition through social reform, primarily based on purported advancements in social organization, science, and technology. Adherents hold that progressivism has universal application and endeavor to spread this idea to human societies everywhere. Progressivism arose during the Age of Enlightenment out of the belief that civility in Europe was improving due to the application of new empirical knowledge. So it's mostly right now in modern political discourse associated with social liberalism. So that's what we're looking at as far as the definition of progressives. And I mean, guys, if you're about social reform, I mean, that's something that you guys really do share in common with anarchists. So that's something right there that is a common ground we can sit on, because me and Andrew both agree with social reform. What do you guys think about that?
That's literally what I was going to say, is that, like, of all of that stuff that you read, the maybe, like, I'm trying to, I guess, I hate to like do the debate thing, but to steelman it is that, oh man, I just totally lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
It's okay. No worries. Take a second, man. Take a second. So one of the things I want to bring up real quick is when we look at progressivism and that bare basic definition, it doesn't seem so bad. But here's the thing, due to the psychology of the human being, the nature of the human being, and the psychology of governments, there's a lot of very open, vast gray areas that can have things implemented within something like this. That, because if you look at the left right now, are they about social reform? What do you
So
guys
is
think?
it
Do you feel like they're about social reform right now?
is it social reform pursued through dictatorial and authoritarian means or democratic means? Because I feel like that is actually the difference that I wanted to point out, is that social reform, it sounds great, but not if it's done in an authoritarian manner, right?
I would agree with that. Andrew, it looks like you got something you want to add over there.
Dang it, I had it and then I lost it. We're all losing our thoughts here.
It's okay.
No, okay,
Guys,
I got
no
it. I
worries.
got it. I'm back. The thing that Stephen, you and I will agree on, especially in terms of social reform, is that we believe in things like equality, and we believe in things like the pursuit of self-actualization, however that looks. So you and I would be like socially liberal in that sense. I'm pretty sure you don't care about gay people. I'm pretty sure you are a very much live and let live sort of person. You probably adhere to what is known as the non-aggression principle. And so you and I share that in common. And then also I'm sure Kyle and Kody, share that in common, that the progressive idea is that everyone should be treated equally. And that's awesome. Yeah, that's the ideal, the standard. But where the deviation happens is that Kyle and Kody being progressive and being in support of the state, and the state being a mechanism that initiates the use of force and coercion and manipulation, that's an authoritarian approach to social reform. And this is the continued issue, is that they don't acknowledge that the state is a coercive entity. And it gets deeper than that. I think Kody had criticized me for being afraid of a global boogeyman, and I don't think that's a fair criticism.
Okay,
But
ultimately,
ultimately,
yeah. No, I was listening. I was agreeing with
you. I don't know where you stand with the World Economic Forum and with all of the efforts to consolidate resources and power via central banking, via government collusion with corporations and nonprofits and non-governmental organizations and all these bureaucracies and administrations, state, whatever. I'm getting on a rambling point. And so this is where it's frustrating, because I want to agree with Kyle and Kody in that people should be let to live their best life, but they should not be coerced into that. And that's the fundamental disagreement. I kind of jumped to the point. I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely fine, man. Pop some mints in and get ready for this. So I'm with you. And so why do you guys feel, let me ask the both of you this question. Why do you feel it's a global boogeyman? I just want to know deep down where that train of thought's coming from, and just to get your perspective on this.
To oversimplify it, nationalism is too strong of a force for a truly global society to exist.
I can understand those sentiments, but the one thing that I would implore you guys to kind of dig a little deeper on is to try and view everything that's going on right now from an objective, overall, third-party point of view. What I feel like you guys might be doing, and you guys can disagree with me on this, it's cool. This is just my opinion, is I feel like you guys are looking at things in a more isolated fashion. Which I can't blame you for, because that's kind of what a lot of people do. They don't take a look at the grand scheme of things, and they don't look at all of the sum of all events leading to what we would call the precipice of something like this. I understand what you mean about nationalism, but one of the biggest things is the U.S. And potentially Israel at this point are really the only two, which I would say really hardcore nationalist countries at this point in time. A lot of other countries have facilitated themselves into the UN, the World Economic Forum. They've become on board with this globalism mentality. So, like, I get your point about nationalism. I mean, yes, when we look at it from that perspective, it is a very strong thing, and it still does exist in two countries left here in the world. But when we look at the state of other countries, and we see how willingly they've given themselves up to globalism, I mean, does that kind of like make you guys think a little bit that something could be very strange about that?
So I'd like to address that, but also you asked the global boogeyman question, and I didn't get to answer that.
Go right ahead. Yeah, no worries.
And so something, and again, like Andrew, I would love for us to really just the one-on-one that you offered in email. Like, I want to do that if you're still willing, but that's another conversation. But anyways, I don't think it's so much of a global boogeyman, and so maybe I said it wrong. But I really do think that there are levels of extreme wealth that run essentially what we might call our shadow government or whatever. The thing is all these people are controlled by money somewhere. And so, like, the Waltons, the Mars family, like, these are families that have such exorbitant wealth and so much power that that's the boogeyman I'm scared of. The boogeyman I'm scared of is the ultra wealthy class. They are the donor class, and they are the people who fund cop cities and further militarize our police and things like that. So it's all just, yeah, it's dark money, it's scary stuff, so whatever. But like, it's also our reality, and it's all capital. Like, if you don't think BlackRock is capitalism, then I'm sorry.
well, and then the one thing too I want to bring up in one of your videos. So before I let Andrew kind of dive in there, and this is something you guys can dwell on because I can see Andrew has a response. So, and with that being said, number 3, you talked about Kamala Harris, and you said that you said that she stated she was a capitalist, and you guys took that at face value. Can I ask why? So Andrew, did you have a response to what Kody was saying about the global boogeyman thing?
Yes. I do not disagree that the donor class is a class to be afraid of, but the donor class would not exist if there was no one to donate to. Do you get my point?
Yes, right.
Very good, man. I'm glad.
So we agree that on the bad people. Sorry.
No. Go right ahead, man. I'm now. You have a little bit of a lag, so I'm just trying to make sure, yeah, that we're syncing up. But no. What was I going to say? So guys, so in your video, with that being said, 3, you said that Kamala Harris openly admitted that she was a capitalist, and she said that. So my question is, why did you guys potentially believe that at face value?
I would have to look back on it because I don't know if it was face value because I'm pretty sure, again, I'd have to rewatch it. I don't watch our content a whole lot, to be honest. But when we were talking about Kamala saying she was capitalist and taking that at face value, we were talking about the Overton window, which was not a topic we had really talked about. And so the idea that, like, anybody in American politics is not a capitalist, is it symbolizes the shifting of the Overton window. Because I'm sorry, Bernie Sanders is like the closest thing to a communist that we have in like national politics.
I understand what you're saying. So one of the things that, I mean, and I'm going to say this, I understand your perspective and where you're coming from, but you guys have been entrenched in politics for a little bit, and you guys been kind of coming up with this understanding. So my thing is this is, have you noticed that a lot of politicians, what they say and what they are two different things? Have you guys potentially picked up on this trend?
Yeah, so I definitely am on the page with you that politicians are generally not your friend. But also, just to reiterate, sorry, what Kyle said is, I bet like 90% of the United States politicians are capitalists. Unfortunately a capitalist. Like, I live in a capitalist system. To say I'm not a capitalist would technically be wrong. I
understand.
Pay a mortgage.
Will
I
you
pay a
please
car.
define capitalism?
So I was just getting
Will you
to
define
that. So
capitalism?
I was just going to get to that. So yeah, do you guys? So I have I have two definitions up. I want to. I will queue up here in a sec.
That's what I was going to say. Do you mind if I pull it up as well?
So here, let's do it. I already got it taken care of. So one thing I want to inform you guys of too. So like, when we're looking at when we're looking at real capitalism, we're going to compare two definitions real quick, because this is something that I'm pretty big on, because I think it's a huge misconception that we have true capitalism here in the United States of America. That's number one. What true capitalism is, I mean, you should not be ashamed to be a true capitalist if that's really the case, because the issue is what we have here in America is called crony capitalism. There's two different kinds of capitalism. So let's go over the traditional definition real quick, and then we'll go over the second one, and then we'll take a comparison real quick. So we have capitalism is an economic system based on the private ownership of the means of production and their operation for profit. The defining characteristics of capitalism include private property, capital accumulation, competitive markets, price systems, recognition of property rights, self-interest, economic freedom, meritocracy, work ethic, work ethic, consumer sovereignty, economic efficiency, limited role of government. Listen to that one. Profit motive, a financial infrastructure of money and investment that makes possible credit and debt. Entrepreneurship, commodification, voluntary exchange, wage labor, production of commodities and services, and a strong emphasis on innovation and economic growth. In a market economy, decision-making and investments are determined by owners of wealth, property, or ability to maneuver capital production, ability in capital and financial markets. Whereas prices and the distribution of goods and services are mainly determined by competition in goods and service markets. So when we look at the bare basic definition of capitalism, I mean that system in and of itself, I mean we see limited government involvement, and this is what's going to kind of lead me to my next one, guys. So I want you to listen to this. This is something Andrew and I have spoken about before on previous episodes. So let's take a look at crony capitalism real quick. So we have crony capitalism. We have crony capitalism, sometimes also called simply cronyism, is a pejorative term used in political discourse to describe a situation in which businesses profit from a close relationship with state power, either through an anti-competitive regulatory environment. I want you guys to pay attention with that. Direct government largesse and or corruption. Definitely pay attention to that one too. Examples given for crony capitalism include obtainment of permits, government grants, tax breaks, or other undue influence from businesses over the state's deployment of public goods. For example, mining concessions for primary commodities or contracts for public works. In other words, it is used to describe a situation where businesses thrive not as a result of free enterprise, but rather collusion between a business class and a political class. So, guys, after hearing both of those definitions, I want to pick your brain. Which one do you think America really has?
Crony, obviously. But so this is what I'll say is I have definitely heard you say the term crony capitalism, and I think you're close. I just think it's not quite it. And so what I would challenge you, and if you want to do it right now live, look up corporate capitalism, because corporate capitalism is a non-pejorative way of saying everything you just said.
Let's take a look here. Let's look up the definition for corporate. No, absolutely, man.
Corporate.
Go ahead, Ann. Were we going to say that?
I want to jump in real quick. I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had earlier talked about how America is, quote, I'll use the term, put it in quotes, a nationalist. We're a very nationalist country. And then we're also a capitalist country. But then we also have a large government corporate sort of collusion going on. So some people would call that fascism. Benito Mussolini would call that fascism. That's what he wanted, is that he wanted state-controlled capitalism, or a merger of the state and the corporations. However, I don't think that's really what's going on. Up one more level, bringing back the globalists, this is just imperialism. This is just imperialism. And so when people say this is late stage capitalism, no, this is late stage imperialism imploding. And I'm frustrated because for 4 years we've been having this conversation, gentlemen. But what we should be talking about is after the collapse, how do we rebuild? How do we build societies where people have freedom? Because I know I'm trying not to use a specific example, but there's some very serious culture war issues that I know affect you personally. And I hate that we're so divided. And I hate that we're not talking about the real issues. We're having these stupid pedantic conversations. And so I saw Kody almost like nodding his head when I was saying this is imperialism and it's about to implode. So, how can we move past these conversations and talk about like the future that we want to build? Because can we not all agree that things are fucked right now? Maybe let's find that as like a restarting point. Do we all agree things are fucked right now and only going to get worse?
Absolutely. 100%.
Well, yeah.
I believe we are in civilizational collapse. We've talked about this before, Andrew. The idea that most civilizations have like a 250-year cycle, and we're getting close to the end, it looks like. But I think really, again, like one of the things that we can do is what we've been doing is defining terms, capitalism, and previously or whatever. I would like it if we could go over a definition of anarchism at some point, maybe not now. But I did want to push back on something you were saying, Stephen, when you were going over the definition of capitalism. There was a list of features that was quite long. And in that you said limited government, pay attention to that one. I feel like that's being selective because shortly, maybe immediately after that, it was profit motive as a feature of capitalism, pure capitalism by definition. Profit is also mentioned in the definition of crony capitalism. So in my opinion, I just think profit motive is probably the main feature of the like utopian ideal of capitalism that has transferred into reality.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. And I can understand where you're coming from with that.
Is there something wrong? Oh.
No. I'm just telling him I understand his perspective, man. No, so one thing I do agree with Andrew on, most certainly he just said, is yes, like, we obviously, guys, we have some common ground here. Like, there's things that we have in common. Okay, like, obviously, like, before we hop into cop cities, one thing I do want to bring up with you guys, just as a refresher, because this is something I like to talk with a lot of people about, is the psychology of governments. So this is just something I want to bring up to you guys. It's an aspect of the psychology of governments, and really why this kind of lines up to what Andrew's saying, that the state is an oppressive force. The state is an authoritarian force. And you can even kind of see this with what we're about to bring up here. And this is actually a pretty reputable source, guys. This is Psychology Today. This is actually one of my favorite articles they've done. So, this individual has a podcast of her own. I definitely have given her a shout out on a couple of my past episodes when I've brought up this article. But so we have how political leaders strategically manipulate us. Okay, so and the key takeaways from this are leaders get people to follow them, even when it's not in the followers' economic or other interests. So, I mean, a lot of these guys, what we're going to be seeing these actually, they're taking place right now in our society as we speak. So, we have that aspect of this. We have leaders use emotion and identity to attract and manipulate followers. So, I mean, we can kind of see that playing out on the left and the right, both the left and the right at this portion of time. Because if you guys have listened to me enough, you know that I give both sides of the bipartisan spectrum shit for various reasons. So they define in-group and out-group by manipulating emotions, especially fear, anger, and outrage. They did put something about President Trump in here, and for the sake of being unbiased, I will definitely read that. I would note that President Trump's use of foreign virus and ordering travel bans for foreign nationals from Europe in his Oval Office speech in 3/11/20 fits his pattern of blaming outsiders and non-Americans for problems. But, my rebuttal to that would be is we see the same thing happening from the left. So, I mean, this is kind of this isn't sway towards any end of the spectrum. It affects the entire bipartisan system in totality. So they solidify an in-group and stress unity against some out-group, which they claim poses a threat. And we've seen that a lot of these out-groups actually don't really pose any kind of threat. But if you guys are familiar with Hegelian dialect, you will understand what I'm saying when it comes to that. Emotion provides information for decision making, especially in the allocation of resources for in groups and against out groups. So, I mean, like I said, we see that playing out full throttle. Emotion focuses attention. I mean, you guys heard me say that the entire American population, at least, and I'm sure some of the global population as well, is in a glass cage of emotion right now. Emotion is an efficient way for leaders to manipulate followers. So this is something we have to have discernment with when we do decide to look at what's on the TV or what's on the internet, because a lot of the state and a lot of these politicians, what they do is they use our emotions against us to manipulate us. So specific emotions are used strategically. Gender differences in emotion are important. White suburban women, it's always the soccer moms, for example, did indeed become a key swing group from 2016 to 2018. Identity is pretty fungible, and identity politics is something we can, definitely touch on in another episode. I absolutely can't stand them. But we can maybe touch base on that later. And then we pick identities to enhance self-esteem, create community. Leaders can take advantage of this, and again, using identity strategically. But our ideas of identities and their boundaries change. For example, gender identity is now being recognized as being more fluid and not binary. Through emotional persuasion, leaders get followers to adhere to particular partisan identity. You both have seen how polarized America has become since 2016. So this is kind of plays into a key faction with that. And then we got leaders emphasize that by sticking with them, followers can avoid harm. Of course, everything is for your safety. You know, so and again, it says from the question and answer period, we're all aware we're being influenced and manipulated constantly. So this is something I want to just bring to attention. Andrew, I know you probably have seen a lot of this stuff play out in real time yourself, everything we kind of just talked about right here. And for you, Kody and Kyle, have you seen a lot of this play out in real time as well? Just some of the stuff that we talked about.
So I think the first takeaway, honestly, was the best one. And so, first of all, will you share that article with me? Because I read everything,
absolutely,
and I will read that. But the
absolutely.
first takeaway essentially is like, hey, leaders are going to do bad things to try to manipulate you. And it's like, duh.
Okay. Well, I totally get that. With that being said, you know, can you understand a little bit more where Andrew's coming from?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the thing is like, I reluctantly vote. I actually just recently found out that I didn't vote in 2022. It was a mid-year or it was a midterm. I didn't vote. But anyways, you get your voting record. I voted in 2020. I didn't vote in 2022. But I don't want to support any of these terrible people. And that's the other thing too, is like, I am going to reluctantly vote for Kamala because that's what I'm going to do. Am I happy about it? No, I'm not super stoked, but I'm going to do it.
Okay, Andrew, do you have something you'd like to add to that?
I don't think you did it on purpose, but you plugged their podcast. Their podcast is With That Being Said, and you had said it earlier. That's why I kind of freaked out a little bit earlier. I hope that you gentlemen keep doing that. You essentially, that article outlined what the social engineers do and what the elites pay the social engineers to do. I know you didn't want to touch on identity politics, but if we can look at it from like a meta level where we acknowledge that it is happening and we try to find how it affects us and how we can sort of step out of it, I think that's the goal. Would you gentlemen agree that there are what I would call social engineers, people who are paid to intentionally create divisive content and to emotionally manipulate people?
I think that it could also be happening in a situation where they're not aware of possibly the damage they're doing.
I agree with you entirely 100%. I don't literally have like any pushback and with you on that point. Like there are 100% people who are producing content and it is completely with a motive, and that motive is political, politically driven. So yeah, we can agree on that one for sure.
Awesome, guys.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah. No, go right ahead. Yeah, go right ahead, Kyle. Yeah.
Because of something like, again, I've had conversations with Andrew about the I guess I'll call it the gender identity debate, and because of my personal experience, I don't really want to get into it, but like topically, I feel like it is really like Dems are pretty pragmatic about it and like we don't really care. Whereas it seems like the right is like making a big deal about this social issue. Do you guys agree with that at all? Or yeah,
I think you know what I'm taking away from that whole issue is this. You know, when we're talking about actual scientific fact, and now when I say scientific fact, I'm not talking about science, the institution. I'm a believer that we have two types of science right now. We have science, the method, which, tried and true. I can't argue with science, the method at all. But when we have science, the institution, which is a little bit different than science, the method, science, the institution would be akin to what I would call a non-theistic religion. And they do exist. You guys can definitely look it out. There are things called non-theistic religions. And it's all about the mentality of the collective that is partaking in this ideology. We've even seen Fauci have the gall to get on stage and go, "I am the science." Okay. This is what I would call a severe God complex, to literally state and go forth and say that you are science itself. So I mean, I can kind of resonate a little bit what you mean they're being, but are they truly being pragmatic? Because when we look at scientific fact, we know that there are not however many genders they are claiming. We look at the fact that there is two genders when we're talking about this, and so I'm just kind of getting a key takeaway here. I mean, it's definitely, I mean, my whole thing is this, like, when we have, so in our society, when somebody has a mental illness, do we normally placate to the mental illness? No, we try to get them help. You know what I mean? Things like that. But like one thing I've seen, at least with this, is I've seen a lot of placating towards this. So I am just curious about your thoughts on that.
They called left-handedness and being gay mental illness. So yeah, that's a social construct, which is the point you're making. I'm sorry.
Can I?
No, you're good, Andrew. Yeah, jump on in, man.
I'm going to beat this fucking horse to death. Okay. To address your point, Kyle, I want to mention the double-edged sword of democracy. I tried to keep it at the culture war level. You brought a specific example to us, so I want to discuss the ramifications of the example you brought up. The double-edged sword of democracy. If Republicans do somehow gain some power and they do pass some legislation that affects this issue, that affects you personally, that's because the government exists. I'm going to just continue to beat this horse to death. And it's actually going to circle it back to the point of your employment. The relationships in your life should be voluntary. The relationships in your life should be voluntary.
That's a good point. And the one I resonate with that, Andrew. And I also give Kyle credit that he's at least trying to get different perspectives from people. At the same time, like, so you guys in the episode 2 of With That Being Said did state that I was okay with echo chambers. Let me just explain something real quick so we can get that out of the way. Yeah, my show is not a debate show. Like, like we're having our discourse today. We're talking about this, but one of the things that I kind of bring people on for is for them to share their story. That's number one. And there's quite a few guests I haven't agreed with. But then again, at the same time, even if I don't agree with them, I try to hold space for them, to at least share their story. You share what they're talking about, regardless of what I agree with or not. And that's just something I kind of wanted to bring up when it comes to this, because, I feel that in that aspect, I do agree with you. We can get caught up in our own echo chambers, and it's not that echo chambers are a good thing. It's the fact of the matter is that sometimes, when we take this path, all right. I'm a big believer. You guys can potentially disagree with me on this. I think that the path for truth and a spiritual path, and if a spiritual path isn't your cup of tea, at least at minimum, the path of being the good person. That should walk hand in hand. So that's something that that we have to kind of consider when we're looking and we're talking about this kind of stuff. But the one thing I do want to kind of hop in real quick before we start discussing solutions is I do want to talk about cop cities. And you guys did bring this up in that. With that being said, episode number 2. I almost thought you said cop shitties at first because like the thing. But why don't you inform all of the listeners about cop cities? Why don't you kind of tell them what they are?
Yeah, Kyle, do you mind if I take this one?
Obviously.
Yeah. So cop cities are a pretty simple idea. They're something that exists in many states. They built one in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which is relatively close to where I am. I don't know where you guys are, but there's probably a cop city coming soon. Just kidding. Denver, I know you're in Denver, right? I love Denver. Washington, I love Washington. They're probably going to have a cop city in Seattle. They'll probably have a cop city in Denver. But anyways, what this is it's kind of actually, I think, like what Stephen was mentioning earlier, which is like a staged militarized city, because that's what some of them actually are. They're just empty cities that have been built that are used for police training. And so it's just the further militarization and radicalization of our police forces.
And that's something I think. Let's start with this. I mean, Andrew, you don't think that's a good idea, do you? Because if I know you well enough, I know you don't think that's a good idea. So yeah.
No, it makes me think of the smart cities, which are coming next.
So there are a few smart cities outside of the United States. I want to do more research into them. And also, Andrew, I think you have, not only you, but Kyle, yourself, and myself, and even Stephen, we have an excellent opportunity to talk about not just cop cities and smart cities, which are actual real things, but freedom zones, which do not exist yet. And like the balkanization of the United States, which also is just a theory. It's not happening.
And no, I think that's a great idea. No, and when I was reading on them, so when you guys mentioned it in the episode, because that was something that caught my interest, because and how people are actually being bullied for those who are opposing them, like that there's legal action being brought up against citizens or municipalities that have an issue with these cop cities. Yeah. I mean that to me just screams some kind of corruption at hand. We kind of see almost that it's almost a totalitarian mentality. If we're going to get technical with it, is that it's that they know what's best and you're not going to say anything about it. And I do think this is something we should be aware of. And as far as one coming to Denver, I don't know about that just yet. But the way Denver operates, I would not be surprised if that was. Although the other thing too is Colorado, in a lot of ways, when you look at the state in its entirety, is not Democrat or leftist at all. It's the two major city centers, Denver and Boulder, which actually make up the majority of that blue population. Yeah. So, but see, the thing is, a lot of the left, they're against police. So this would be very interesting if Denver tried to implement something like this. Because I do feel that it would get immense pushback.
Yeah. I lived in Denver for 10 years prior to this. I identify with Denver as like that's where I raised my son. My son lived from the ages of 0 to 10 in the city of Denver. We lived off of East Colfax in Aurora. So if you know your places, then you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, Denver's great. I would hope that they don't have a cop city coming soon. And then another thing that I think Andrew would agree with is that like this fighting that people are doing about cop cities being built or not, that's just the facade, because it's going to get built because the money's there.
Okay.
Kyle, yes, I understand. Your Cop City got stopped. Wow.
Exactly.
For you.
Well,
So
no, go ahead. What were you gonna say, Kyle?
that's the point. That's the only point I wanted to make, is that like cop cities obviously come down to funding. We talked about this before, and there was a successful protest, and by that I mean successful in that Cop City initiative to go onto the ballot in Arizona. And this goes into all of the points that I want to make, is that like cop cities are there's not going to be a cop city in Phoenix, because the protests held by the cops Stop Cop City movement, which is an example of a great like activist movement, which there aren't a whole lot of in this country, and there needs to be more. But the Stop Cop City movement is actually pretty legit. And they held a protest in Scottsdale. And I got my ballot the other day, and guess what? That initiative is not on there. And that goes into the thing we talked about earlier about like the difference between voting for like candidates and initiatives, because initiatives, ballot initiatives and referendums are only allowed in like 20 something states. Like half of America determines their laws through the state appointed legislature. So again, this is why it matters that Stop Cop City movement came to Scottsdale, launched a successful protest, and kept that initiative from the ballot.
Okay. Andrew, what are your thoughts on this?
I actually agree with what you said, Kyle, that there are not a lot of good movements in this country, a lot of activist organizations. I think a lot of them have been captured or were, sort of infiltrated from the initiation, or like, just fake. And so that's something that we need to think about, is how do we, or maybe it's something I do think about personally, is I wish there was a cool movement I could be a part of. And then MKultra was, I think, on the agenda, but like something like the 60s, I felt like would have been really cool if we could have a revival of something like that, but without the CIA. That would be really cool. Because I know a lot of men, especially us single men, we yearn for like community and yeah, I wish there was a cool movement.
So I have one note that I absolutely have to bring up, because it's in my, and that's my thing, is I have so many notes, and this whole section right here is just Andrew compliments. It's compliments for Andrew. So
I like to hear that. That's cool, man. Compliments are the way. Compliments
and I know how to take notes really well too. So like it's something I've been doing for years and years and years and years. But in your guys' previous meeting, and that's the other thing too, is if nothing else, Steven and Andrew, know that Kyle and I are listening to you. If no one else is listening to you, know that we are. But Andrew,
I appreciate that.
You said we need more nobodies doing something, and no one could say it better.
Cool, man. And this is where we're at, guys. Like, and I mean, we will touch on MKultra, but let's hold the floor for solutions for just a second here. I mean, this is something that Andrew and I are both very big on. We're big on a solution-based mindset. I think one of my biggest things when I see a lot of people, and I'm not trying to borrow a quote from Albert Einstein because he's not actually a favorite of mine, but this actually makes a lot of sense. Is what I see is a lot of people using the same mentality that created the problem to try and solve the problem. They're not moving forward with a solution-based mindset, and and that's how we actually come forth with solutions like this. Is we don't use the same mentality that caused the issue in the first place. And I think, like I was saying, the country is kind of in a glass cage of emotion at this point in time. So it's almost as if it's an autopilot. But Andrew, let's get the floor to you real quick. What do you feel are some possible solutions for, maintaining a type of harmony, especially in this case? Obviously we have common ground, but we have some ideological differences here. So what in your eyes, man, would be a really good solution? We can kind of start to break down this barrier. I, for one, think just sitting here and doing this show is definitely a good start. But I know you have some ideas working in that brain of yours, so let's hear them.
Thank you, Kody, for the compliment. And I want to actually mention last night your show with Ryder was talking about healing. I think we need to heal ourselves, and then we need to heal our communities. I need to lose some weight. I need to do more yoga. I need to take better care of myself. But one thing that maybe we could do actively is work to get plant medicines decriminalized and available to the general population. I don't think everybody should do them, but I do think everyone should have the opportunity to do them. And I'm talking like mushrooms or ayahuasca or ibogaine, even LSD, psychedelics. So I had mentioned the 60s earlier. But then I think another thing, and this is something I think about a lot, but it's an issue with the liability, is having like centers for where people can go to engage in these activities safely and with like a guide. And I know that there are some resorts that exist, but like most things in this world, it's a class sort of barrier. They're expensive. And I think often about people with addictions and the homeless population in Washington State. There are tent cities everywhere, and it just hurts. It hurts to drive by them. And I have people in my life that have dealt with addiction. We all have had people, right? And we all have our own sorts of addictions. And when I think about our loved ones, it would be so amazing if you could just look at them and say, hey, there's this place around the corner that offers this psilocybin experience for you. It's safe. I'll pay for it. It's affordable, whatever. I believe in you. You have worth. You need to keep going. Sometimes people need that medicine. It's truly a medicine. And we could get, that could be like an actual activity we could get engaged with. We could get referendums and initiatives. I don't know how all of that works. And this is where the YouTube, I'm pointing at my computer screen. You two are down here, Kyle and Kody, who know how the system works. Maybe Stephen and we can contribute, just with these conversations, and then you two can kind of forge the path legislatively to open the doors. That's one of the biggest things we can do. So healing ourselves, but then also working to enable our communities to be available for psychedelic healing. And I'll end it there. Thank you.
I like that, man. So guys, real quick, that's something, that's a very good talking point. What are your opinions on that?
I lived in Colorado to legalize weed on the ballot. I lived in Arizona to legalize weed in Arizona. So that's literally like what you're talking about. I would love and gladly pay the way for MDMA therapy, which Andrew, you've mentioned. And I get it that that's not necessarily plant-based. It's more chemical. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I agree with the idea of joining activism with political participation.
I think that's cool. You guys are on that. I mean, I agree with Andrew there. I think healing the population is going to be one of the biggest things we can kind of start to do from a solution based mindset, because one of the biggest things is, no matter what system we have in place, if we do not do something with the state of collective mental health, collective emotional health, and putting forth this, what I would say, this initiative for actual healing, we are going to continuously find ourselves in the same struggles that humanity does face. So I completely agree with Andrew on what he just said. I do think that plant medicine could be a very big, important thing to break down some of these barriers when it comes to our healing, that we experience on this collective level. Well, one of the things that in my entheogenic experiences, and I think this could definitely benefit the human collective, is the feeling of oneness with the people around you and the existence that we're all temporarily experiencing here, this temporary human ride. And so I'm with you on that, Andrew. I think that's a fantastic idea. I think that's a really good way, and it's an acceptable way to dissolve barriers too. I think it's a little less abrasive because when you undergo a psychedelic experience or a plant medicine experience, you do have those barriers dissolved naturally, as opposed to when you're sitting there with face to face with somebody you might not necessarily agree with on an ideological level. It can be very abrasive, almost sometimes, for a lot of people. And of course, ego gets involved, and that's a big thing that a lot of plant medicines put to bed for a little bit during their time running through our bodies, is the ego. So it's actually I think that's great. So let's move down to Kyle and Kody. What do you guys think is something we can do to start facilitating solutions to the issues that we face as a collective today, and something that can help bring us all a little bit closer and gain a little bit more understanding of each other?
I want to be open to solutions because I feel like you guys being solution-based thinkers or whatever is something I've heard you say, and like I don't feel like I am living life with a bunch of solutions. I go to work, I pay my bills, I feed my dog, I feed my son, like I hang out with my kid. Like I'm just kind of on autopilot, and like I'm not out there in my community making it better. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I was. So
Well, thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that, man. And no, I think, solutions, man. And this is one thing I want to just run by you. And I know Andrew agrees with me on this. We as a collective, we've been conditioned to think everything is hyper complex. And this is just a facet of conditioning we've experienced from our society, from the powers that be. We've been conditioned to think this because, even a good example of this, I brought up in my show last night with Ryder, is our health. We have been conditioned to think that our health is hyper complex and we possibly cannot have it in our own hands, and we have to give up our sovereignty, at least in that sense, and hand off our health to other people because they understand us better than we understand ourselves. That's something to think about too. But like, even with solutions, man, they don't have to be hyper complex. I mean, it can literally be you just being kind to somebody who walks by. like smiling and waving at somebody who, deep down inside, you don't know if they're having a shit day, or they're having a shit week or a shit month or a shit year at that point. But that's a solution, man. And like going out into your community too and getting to know the people. I think that's something that has really been a detriment to human mental health, because how old are you guys, if you don't mind me asking, Kody and Kyle?
36.
There, yeah, you guys are my age, so you understand. You remember the days before all of this. Then you remember we used to hang out with people in our neighborhood. We used to have bonfires. We used to have block parties. We used to do all those kinds of things, man. Yeah. And even bringing that facet back into our daily lives. I mean, you don't have to go and throw like a banging house party as soon as we get off the show, but like like maybe like going out and like, maybe doing a community meet and greet where you all get to know each other, get to know each other's faces, because we can all bring something super special to the table, at least in those terms. And I mean, and that's good, and that's just something I want to say. Don't hyper make these solutions hyper complex. Solutions are very simple. That's something I think that the greater collective needs to shake off, because they feel that with everything going on, there has to be some kind of hyper complex solution to fix it all. So just something I want to add in there. Andrew, it looks like you had something you wanted to add. Go right ahead.
To Cody's point about how he's currently not, out in his community, I 100% get that, because most of us in the working class, and I use that term intentionally, although I'm not so you're working class, right? No,
for the most part,
yes.
yeah. Blue collar. If we're getting technical, I'm blue collar.
We're broke. We're just so broke, and we're all so tired because we're having to work a whole bunch. And it's not even now that we're having to work a whole bunch, but when it's at work, the productivity expectations are up there, and so I totally get the appeal to progressivism. And then, but I will say, I know it's really hard to sometimes carve the time out, but volunteering, it feels really good. I haven't in like the last few months, and so I get it because I'm right there with you. But just at my local humane society, and it's like, A, it's very fulfilling, and then B, there's some cute girls there sometimes. I don't know if you're single or not, but like the dude to chick ratio is in your favor. But then also, they do community outreach events, and so getting into the community, it feels so good. And it's humbling, and I'd suggest you look into it. Your local humane society probably needs some help.
Can I interject?
Absolutely, yeah. Go right ahead, Kyle. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Andrew, but I feel like what you're talking about, and to oversimplify the term, is the alienation of capitalism. But I honestly do not want to drill down on that at all, because I wanted to talk about something else. The definition of progressivism that we were talking about earlier, because in my opinion, a solution is arrived at when a problem is solved. Does that not equal progress? So this is where I get into the etymological point of the word progressivism. So the fact that it essentially just means progress. That's why I identify with that label.
Andrew,
Steven, do you want to take that one? No.
Look, man. Look.
No, there's a flaw in your logic.
Okay.
It's this is the one thing. So where I kind of disagree with what you just said. Progressivism is a very open-ended definition. There's when we look at yes, I get your etymology. You see progress, okay, but one person's progress is another man's detriment sometimes. Like, that's something we have to take into consideration. And one thing, and I know you guys don't feel this way, because based on the conversation I've had with you tonight, I can tell we have a lot more in common than you think, and that's a good thing. But progressivism, as it's seen now, is progressing towards more government control, and more government regulation, and more regulation by the state. And what, at least in my opinion, at this point in time, we see, like, don't get me wrong. One thing that I'm big on is, I know there's organic instances. I'm not outruling organic instances. And what I mean by organic instances is this: I understand the nature and the psychology of the human being. And I understand that we can feed off of each other sometimes. You know what I mean? So I know that those are there, but we have these instances too, where that's what I would call, which are imposed upon us. So that's as far as once the problem is solved, a solution arises. We can't solve a problem without a solution. Like, you know what I mean? That's the mindset. Like, we have to have a solution geared towards the problem in order to solve that problem. Problems don't normally solve themselves. I mean, in rare instances, and I'll say, if for my spiritual people who are tuning in, if you're in Dharma, sometimes your problems will solve themselves if you've managed to get there. But other than that, it's yeah. But no, I mean, I can understand where you're coming from though on the etymology standpoint. But we have to understand that right now, like even what you guys agreed with at the beginning of the show, is a lot of people have lost like a true disconnection for definitions. And the other thing too is a lot of these definitions can have what I can call subjectively imposed notes on them. So, like, when we look at progressivism as it's defined to now, it seems like the progress they want to make is towards more government control. And, we kind of just went over that Psychology Today thing. I will go ahead and I'll email that to you too. Once we're done, I'll email you a couple of links. But we can see that the last thing that we need right now is more government control.
Is there a qualifier you would put on progressivism the way you put on capitalism to define, what we have as crony capitalism? Because what we have isn't real progressivism. Sorry to be.
No. You're fine, man. You're fine. So, I mean, I'm not saying what we have is not real progressivism. So,
You're not?
When what'd you say?
You said that the modern left is pushing towards a progressivism that is like wanting more government control. In my opinion, that's not real progressivism.
Well, of course, no, I completely agree with you on that because of the definition that we went over. Okay, the definition that we went over, no, that's not real. But this even leads credence to my argument that a lot of these definitions can have a subjectively imposed ideology into them.
Yeah.
And yeah. Go ahead. What'd you say, Kyle?
Like anarchism.
So anarchism is not a anarchism is very much so a personal philosophy. If we're going to get into that too, it can work on a large scale. If done in a certain way, at least in my opinion. However, that even lends credence to what Andrew was saying as well, that, we have a lot of healing that we need to do, when it comes to potentially implementing a system like that. So, I mean, really, I'll be honest with you, because like, let's look at the, let's look at this. And this is what an example I'm going to bring up to you guys. So let's look at communism real quick. Let's look at the definition of communism, and you're going to kind of get what I'm saying here. So let's go ahead and look up communism, and let's bring it up. So and this is what I mean. You can look at this and the way things are worded. I mean, yeah, it sounds nice, like, or it sounds like this could potentially be, something. But then again, we're dealing with human beings, and we have subjective ideology. So you have communism is a socio-political, philosophical, and economic ideology within the socialist movement, whose goal is the creation of a communist society, a socio-economic order centered around common ownership of the means of production, distribution, and exchange that allocates products to everyone in the society based on need. A communist society would entail the absence of private property and social classes, and ultimately money and the state. So while yes, like, when we look at a bare basic definition like this, and like, we see, oh yeah, the elimination of the state, that's cool. But you have to understand there's also subjectively imposed ideologies, because, you have Marxism, and then you have, I believe, Marxist Leninism, and all of the different sects of communism and socialism as well. So like, that's what I'm saying. Like, while real progressivism, I guess you could say, is not what we have right now, they're taking this word and they're taking some of the dynamics of this definition and implementing it towards their agenda.
Just left field. Go ahead, Andrew.
Jump in, because I'm kind of Kyle, you said a lot of things, and I want to circle it all kind of back to the communism. Kyle, you said that the modern progressives are not actually progressives, and I agree with you because they are brainwashed, useful idiots being used to perpetuate the it's not communism, it's not fascism. That's why these words are hard. Communo-fascism, the totalitarian takeover of the planet, right? But you had said something about progress, and if you solve a problem, is that not progress? Stephen, you addressed the subjectivity component of that, where progress is subjective in terms of what the solution to what the outcome to a problem should look like. There we go. But there's also a how element because if you have a problem of starvation and you kill half of your population, your starvation problem isn't as bad, but you have a net loss of half your population. And that's the economics that communists fail to acknowledge, that leftists fail to acknowledge, the historical economics, the net loss of the attempt to implement the ideology. And here's the deal. I don't think the people at the top are actually communists. This is the Mott and Bailey, the switch. The people at the top just see that they can use this rhetoric to obtain positions of power and believe that they will stay inside that class. And some of them will stay in that very small, isolated class. But the rest of us will become peasants if we live. And so the subjectivity of what progress is, in addition to the means or methods in which we accomplish it, is very important in all of this. So I agree we need to make progress, but you're not thinking about those two things.
No, that's great because when it comes down to the death toll, global capitalism absolutely out-trumps authoritarian communism when it comes to Soviet Russia, China, and all the people that died due to communism. Again, it was authoritarian communism, which apparently you guys are willing to write off when it comes to Russia and China, but not when it comes to America when we call it capitalism. So Russia and China were communists and America's capitalists. Can we all just agree there?
It's the one thing I just want to add. Okay. And I'm going to just throw this in there. One of the biggest things I could leave you guys with too is the world is not exactly black and white. You know what I mean? It's that's what I would call we're trying to compartmentalize things into these two boxes, these two very specific boxes. And when we're talking about something like this, we have to kind of open the floodgates of our brain to understanding that is not black and white. Okay. I mean, China, before it was actually, what's really interesting about China did have cronyism that evolved into communism. So before the communist regime,
I know a lot about China, believe me.
Yeah. So you wait, what'd you say? Sorry, you cut off there.
I am a history teacher. So everything you're going to say about China, I can guarantee you I probably already know.
Well, that's good, man. That's good. The also the other thing too that I would implore, you guys take a look is, what's in history books is not always factual, but no, that's cool that that's a good thing. But no, that's how it evolved. China before the communist regime took over in China. If you do definitely know this, that they did have a form of cronyism there before they moved into being fully communist. So but that's just kind of where I'm going to leave it at with that. But nonetheless, guys, we're kind of in the winding down phase of the show. So let's touch a little bit on MKultra. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest. I didn't get a chance to finish that whole episode. However, I got to say kudos to you guys for exploring that topic, and I want to get your thoughts on MKultra. Like, I want to know. I mean, and also too with that, do you see potentially, depending on what studies you looked at from MKultra, do you see a lot of this playing out in our society today in some way, shape, or form?
Sorry. I think that one of the cool things about MKultra is how readily available the information is. And I think that's something we mentioned in our video. But like I had mentioned to Kyle something about it happening in Canada, and he was like, "Oh, you sound like a crazy person." And I was like, no, because that's the thing is you look it up. There were Montreal experiments that took place in Canada under the guise of MKultra. And it was just this thing that happened at this university. And it was probably some nefarious experiment because that's what they were doing. So I think it's cool how readily available the information is. If this is happening on like a massive scale, I don't think so. But that kind of brings me to a question that I wanted to get out there, and this is for both you and Andrew. Is do you guys think you can have positive interactions and or outcomes from engaging lower frequency individuals? Because I'll admit, I think I would fall into the lower frequency individual archetype if I'm being honest with myself. So
well, don't man, what you're doing right there though. What you just did right there is you put a limiter on yourself. Sure. You know, and well, I don't do that to yourself, man. Like for all you know, man, like you might be high frequency in some ways, and you just haven't explored that. So, you know, the one thing I would implore you to, well, yeah, dude, don't put, man, we you know, and if I'm breaking bread with you guys, the one thing I'll honestly say is we put our own limits on ourselves. I mean, when we look at a lot of things, you know, I mean, I'm a big believer in panpsychism potentially being what's going on.
I looked this up as well. Yeah.
Good. So, I mean, if consciousness truly is the prime fundamental of our reality, then I mean, we you know, we impose those limits if reality's mental. So number one, don't do that to yourself, bro. You know, for all you know, you could be high frequency. I mean, this is my thing too. This will be my answer. I know Andrew's thinking out his answer. There is benefit. All right. And there is benefit to interacting with people who might not be on your wavelength. And this is why we're having this conversation tonight, because you guys might even be on the wavelength and not even know it yet. You guys are still kind of in your, what I would say, discovery phases of a lot of things. And one thing I'll give you guys credit for too is you guys do research. That's awesome. You know, you don't just go up here and just make shit up. Like you're actually just trying to, you're trying to do research and you're trying to be factual with what you're trying to do. Where we can benefit from that is we plant seeds. Okay. And you know, we not only do we plant seeds, okay, it also is good for people who are, and I won't even say like the difference between high frequency or low frequency with this. I would say I call it those who are on their spiritual evolution and those who are not. And that's kind of like the best way I can put it. And yes, I mean, yes, there is benefit, okay, to a lot of different extents. People like us who are on our spiritual evolution, we live a very different kind of life than people who are not. And one thing, now I'm a big believer that, you know, you should be energetically strong and you should be able to walk into the world and be a beacon of light, despite if anybody else around you knows it or not. However, though, like there is something, you know, for something to be said that, you know, we in some ways kind of are on a different wavelength. And not that that makes us better than anybody. It's just something that we've chosen to tune into, if you can kind of get what I'm saying. It's not a holier than now. It's we see the world just a little bit differently, and we experience things just a little bit differently than somebody who's not on their spiritual evolution. So sometimes for people like us, it can be, if we're around people that are not on their spiritual evolution, it can get very energetically taxing. Because in a lot of ways, it's almost that if there's a disconnect in relatability. People like Andrew and I, like, we spend a lot of time trying to heal ourselves, trying to better ourselves. I mean, like, I'm up going to the gym every morning at 3:30 a.m. I come home, I meditate, I do Kriya yoga. Like, I live a very almost Eastern lifestyle. And when it comes to a lot of things, and you look at your typical person who's not on their spiritual evolution, and it's disconnect and relatability, which can be energetically draining to us, if we could put ourselves through it on a consistent enough basis. But there's definitely benefit, man. Like, yeah, I wouldn't say that there's no benefit at all. And plus, you two, the good thing about you two is you're open to conversation. A lot of people who are not on their spiritual evolution, they're not even open to having this kind of conversation. You know what I mean? And they're not even so. So that's why I said, man, don't limit yourself. You could be more high frequency than you think you are. And it's just all about your exploration.
No, it's okay, Kody, because I overcompensate, and that's what I was gonna get at, is that, like, I have a tendency to condescend to people, and I apologize to all three of you for having to put up with that, because that's just how I converse, I guess.
He's my brother. He's been that way forever, you guys.
I come off this way, and I apologize. But this goes into the self-awareness thing, which I wanted to relate to your idea of spiritual evolution, because I think in order to make that happen, you need to be self-aware. You need to have some self-awareness.
Absolutely.
And so again, I apologize for my condescension, but also just another nitpicking thing is that we watch your content, and me and Kody had this semantic conversation about how you were, I believe, using the word frequency in one of your videos, and I used the term wavelength recently in a conversation that we were having, and that just goes into how much we talk to each other about this BS. Is that, like, we were literally having this semantic conversation about the difference between wavelength and frequencies.
Well, I mean, really, it's kind of a very similar thing. I mean, we're looking at two sides of the same coin. So yeah, no, that's cool. You were talking about it, but but Andrew, what do you think, man? Let's get your answer to that question too. Do you feel that somebody who is on is there any benefit to somebody who's on their spiritual evolution communicating and talking with people who are not?
This turned into a really vulnerable moment, and I dig it, and I want to roll with it. So I do have a response. First of all, Stephen, I see your Instagram posts, and it tells you how many hours ago it was posted. This dude is up at 3:30 in the morning. It's insane, and I just want to say thank you for hosting this conversation, Stephen, and for being an inspiration.
Thank you.
One of the things that drew me to your channel initially, Stephen, was that you like Sarah who you had on last week, you discuss these really spiritual terms in relatable and understandable ways. And so to Kody, I don't even use, like, I don't think in terms of frequency. I don't see people, like, I'm not there yet on even my own journey. I'm more in I like the philosophical sort of, like, I mentioned Plato's cave earlier. I see you and your brother is in the cave, and I see this activity is Stephen and I going into the cave to try and, like, pull you out of it. And that's why I had said earlier at the very beginning, you want to shake people, but they have to want to walk out of the cave themselves. And it does seem that you two are interested in that. And so, I commend that. I really do. I just want to go a little further. in my 20s, I was a douche. I would have been considered a low frequency person. And I acknowledged that. And that's the last 10 years of my life. I've been trying to be better. And I still have so much work to do. But framing the question from the perspective of, you think you're a low frequency person, you may have also been a douche, I don't want to get too far into it, but the whole like Jesus metaphor, there's just something so powerful and so profound about a level of compassion and forgiveness that you deserve, because no human is perfect. Holy shit.
Yeah.
And so I'm not actually a Christian, but that metaphor is so beautiful. There's also my logo, and also Stephen, your logo has the Tao symbol embedded in it. If you
I did
listen
that on
or
purpose.
read the book, I listen to the audiobook often. The Tao Te Ching, there's a
Yes.
particular version, and I'll send you a link to it. In the intro, they
Please do.
talk
Why
about
not?
how like evil or sin is not a force to be wrestled with, but or an opaqueness, as to like
Mhm.
dirt on a window that just needs clean so you can see through. Or we could use the Solzhenitsyn line: the battle between good and evil runs through every man's heart. But then it's up to you to decide, do you want to be a force for good? And you do. I know you do. Like, I don't think you two are out here trying to be forces for evil, or else I wouldn't be here. I could be wrong. I I have been wrong before, but so look into how to forgive yourself. That's really tough. And with 4 dudes here on a chat, dudes' mental health in this day and age is fucked. We could do a whole nother episode on that. And I can tell you, that's why I'm here, is because I haven't given up on you, I guess.
Okay, so
and like I said, we need more just awesome. Yeah.
Before Kyle, self-awareness. I'm just throwing that out there. What were you gonna say?
oh yeah, can I interject?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So you started that by talking about, to use a word, the archetype of Jesus, and I think that's great. But to bring it back to Eastern philosophy, which seems kind of weird, but Stephen and Andrew, have you guys read Siddhartha by Herman Hesse?
No, I have not read Siddhartha, but thanks for that recommendation, man. I'm gonna go ahead and write this down.
It's like less than 100 pages. I read The Cave too, and yeah, it's not very long. But so read Siddhartha, and it's basically the story of the Buddha, and it's as inspirational as the story of Jesus, in my opinion.
Well, and it's cool, you guys, and so there you go. Like, I mean, you have an affinity for a lot of Eastern mysticism, that Eastern type of spirituality, and yeah, that's something I would expand upon, because this is the one thing. I'm gonna talk about this, and then I do got to wind down for tonight. That's why you guys, whether or not you choose a spiritual evolution, or whether or not you just choose the path of being the good person, whichever is going to be your choice in that. Don't feel restricted by anything. Don't feel obligated to stick with one thing. That's really when we break it down. I mean, yes, even though I'm very Eastern and I resonate so much with a lot of Eastern philosophy, I'm really when it comes down to it, an omnist. There's I don't believe any single spirituality or religion is the truth, but the truth can be found in all of them.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think, we as a people, when we start to get on this evolution of ours, and we start to kind of we feel that we get stuck in either the I guess you could say the best way to describe it is the cage of the family religion, or that the cage of what my friends group believes, or this cage, and we can lock ourselves in these cages, And a lot of times what that leads to is fundamentalism, and fundamentalism and I have beef, but we'll put it that way. But nonetheless, man, yeah, don't restrict yourself, guys. And after our conversation tonight, I'll lead you with this, man. Like, I think you two kind of grew a little bit after this, as I feel like I've grown a little bit too talking to you guys. And I see deep within the both of you, I see a want to do something good in this world, and you're well on the way to doing it, man. And and don't put limitations on yourselves, okay? You guys don't even feel the need to stick with, I mean, like you guys were saying too, echo chambers and things like that. Don't be afraid to go down a rabbit hole from time to time. That's definitely that's it's good. It's good for the soul when you do it that way. When you live in the rabbit holes constantly, that's when it starts to be detrimental. When you live there, like a rabbit hole is a place that you buy a plane ticket to. Like, it's a two-way plane. You're visiting the rabbit hole, but you're not staying there. You're not buying real estate. You're not you're not setting up shop. You're so yeah, man. I mean, it's good for the soul because through that, I mean, even though you guys are really good about trying to stay out of your echo chambers, when you stay within because here's the thing, I'll tell you, there's a lot of credible sources and information outside of the mainstream. It's just knowing where to look for them. So, and a lot of times when yes, you might be looking at different perspectives, but if they're all part of the mainstream perspective in and of itself, then you're going to lock yourself in that mainstream cage. Like, you know what I mean? And one of the biggest things, guys, and we even talked about the psychology of governments here briefly on this episode, is, they want you in that cage. So the biggest act of rebellion you can do for yourselves is to break yourselves out of it. And when you do, one of the biggest things I think you'll find is the door was never locked and your chains were never locked either. And that's a stunning realization to make, man. It's very liberating and powerful. Well, nonetheless, guys, you know what? I actually had a good time tonight. I think this is great. Yeah, no, I feel like we made progress, man. Kyle, I dig the apology and the self-awareness. That's cool. Definitely work, put that could be a part of your healing you can focus on. You know what I mean? And Kody, don't limit yourself, man. Like, you two have a lot of potential. You truly do. And I think that if you guys put your heads together, go through the alchemical process a couple of times, that is also good for the soul. Going through those 7 steps, and you guys can really, really, really put something forth that's going to be good here. So keep up the good work, guys. I have nothing but respect for you. So, I mean, even if there's certain things we don't agree on, I still respect you guys. So I'll leave it off with that. And Andrew, is there anything else you'd like to say before the end of the show?
Yeah, real quick. I've been working on a t-shirt design. So this shirt here, no division. It's a little project I've been working on. I'm going to put a link in. This is on my YouTube channel, and then I'll share it with these gentlemen if they want to put a link in there. During the course of the conversation, we had talked about how there's not like a cool movement. I don't want to start a movement, but I want to participate in one. And so if I have a little bit of energy and enthusiasm, I can share with another movement. That's my goal. And if I can make a few bucks along the way, that's cool, because we need to stop. Like, it's really 99% against the 1%, and so that's all. Thank you very much for participating, gentlemen. This was not on my 2024 bingo card, but I'm glad that you persisted. Thank you.
Good stuff, guys. So Andrew, I have your YouTube channel, your Instagram, and your Facebook in the bottom of both the Rumble and the YouTube description. Kyle and Kody, I have your YouTube channel, but if there's any social media that you have you want to throw out there real quick, so people can come find you, chat with you, maybe pick your brain, why don't you let them know now?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I don't think-
hold on.
Sorry.
Kyle, sorry, let me talk. I'm just gonna say my Instagram, and it's very conceited. And hey, Andrew, maybe I was a douche when I thought, but it's Kody the Great, and there's an underscore, so it's Kody underscore the Great.
Okay.
But that's my Instagram, and honestly, I don't use it for much other than like food posts and stuff. But that's where I am on Instagram. The YouTube channel is, I think Steven's gonna post that.
Yep.
And then finally, Steven, I want to say thank you a million times because for offering us your platform. And then also, I'll let you know, not once tonight did I feel like I was in a debate. I feel like you give off great vibes when it comes to platforming and interviewing. So, like, at most, it maybe felt like an interview. But I'm
Well,
good
man,
at interviewing, so.
Thanks, man. Well, that's why I brought up that thing earlier, and trust me, I wasn't offended by it when you guys said it. Again, like, the biggest thing I try to do with a lot of people is I try to put myself in their shoes, and it's something I do quite often. And that's why I want to say, like, this is what my show's about, man. Like, I like hearing people's stories. I like hearing what they're working on. Regardless if I agree with what they're saying or not. And one episode, if you guys want to take a look, so you guys can see, a guest that I really didn't agree with a whole lot is Stephen Meyer. Don't get me wrong, he's a great guy. I got a world of respect for him. He does amazing research, but there's just some things that I don't agree with him. So, like, I think there's a little bit more to the story than what he's putting out. But but other than that, I guess Kyle ended up losing himself.
Yeah,
but,
sorry, Steven. He just texted me his computer died.
Oh, it's okay. Don't worry, man. Other than that, guys, you have yourself a good night, Kody. We'll be in touch, man. And just keep on, just keep on looking, dude. Like, you keep on checking stuff out. I appreciate you checking out my show. Thank you very much. I mean, that means the world to me, to know that you're actually watching and you're enjoying what you're seeing. And I hope I'm helping you learn, man, because one of the biggest things that I say is, I mean, I'm just kind of in the same boat as the rest of you guys. I mean, we're here learning together. And I have my ideas, I have my theories, I have my speculations, but when it really comes down to it, you and I are really in the same place, man. and that's how it rolls. So, other than that, man, you have yourself a good night. We will chat later. Take care, man. Have a good one.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Steven. Have a good night, guys.
You too, man.
All
right. So Andrew, this was a good time.
you mediating made that possible because you identified when I was getting worked up, and then you also provided different perspectives. You made, and then also, do you know how Kody complimented your conversational and interview? I told you. It's still funny because I told you that earlier, and then he said it. I'm like, yes.
Here, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and bring Kyle back on. I got something. He came back for a sec. Hey man, no worries. I get your computer died.
Apologize, and you guys can tell from the borders on the side that I'm on my phone now. But my laptop died, and I wasn't trying to run and grab the charger in the middle of that great conversation.
No problem, man. No problem, man. Just like your brother, man. I want to say, like I said, I see a lot of potential in you guys. I think you guys have the ability to do something truly good here. I like you found a little bit of self-awareness in this episode, like what you were talking about, man. And and just what I'm going to say, man, is just keep exploring, keep doing what you're doing. Understand that that we do respect you, bro, and we want to see where you evolve. We want to see where you grow too, man.
And I know you're busy, Steven, but I would really like if we could do this again.
Absolutely, man. So season 2 is ending in December, and season 3 has a very big, vast, and open schedule. So yeah, we will definitely be chatting again soon, man, for sure. And other than that, you have yourself a good night, my friend. You take care, and thanks for being here.
Honestly, it was a pleasure. You guys have a good night.
You too, man. Take care.
Peace.
So I'm glad I can help you with that, man, because I mean, like I said, I can see their heart is in it. and that's kind of, I can, and like for me, and a lot of it reminds me of from when I first started, like, and I've been in that position, man, and like that's why, I resonate, I try to really look at where they're coming from too, and they're fresh, man, and they might have been involved, but they're fresh, and I do think that this was a great conversation to have, and it did open some doors for them.
Yeah. Totally agreed, man. You're a magician.
Well, man, this is what we've talked about on past episodes before. Like, this is where it all starts. And, I think that right now, what we just did tonight, in some ways, did kind of cause a paradigm shift a little bit. And we'll have to see the energetic effects from this and how it evolves. Don't get me wrong, but it might seem small what we just did, but what we just did was kind of big in a lot of ways. And I think now that we've put this energy forth into our collective consciousness, that people are doing this, maybe we'll see it happen elsewhere. What do you think?
I completely agree. I was not prepared for the level of vulnerability that showed up. I saw the condescension, and I was trying to hold back. But then the self-awareness and vulnerability, I was like, "Wow, okay." If they props, man, like that was impressive, and you handled it
Thanks,
so well. Like there's probably a point that we both can think of that like just peak condescension, and then but you were just like, I saw you. You were like, I got this. Good job.
It's like, thanks, man. I'm not even aware of everything I can do just yet. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I have a look that or something like that. That just, I don't know, pierce through to people. But my friend, I do gotta hop off and eat dinner. I want to say, dude, as always, it's a motherfucking pleasure to sit here with you and chat with you as always, man. And I want you to keep some dates open for season 3. Once we get a little bit closer, I want to have you back on, man. And we're gonna continue where we picked off last time.
It would be an honor. Thank you very much, sir. You have a good rest of your
Absolutely, evening. Man. You have a good night too, man. Guys, thanks again for joining me for another BG Cast Wednesday live podcast. Next week, I will be back. Rachel Sunshine will be hopping on with us again. She's going to discuss some of her theories about weather modification. And she's going to be kind of diving into a little bit of a add-on to the Pagosa story from when we had her on last time. And some of what she's been dealing with down there with that huge corruption in this small town of Colorado called Pagosa Springs. So I'll be looking forward to that. Other than that, you guys, thanks again for joining me for another BG Cast live podcast. Take care, guys. Have a good night. And then there's the awkward silence.